I want to focus on pitching because I said it, you're a Mets fan, and I feel like the Mets this year are loaded with pitching. Obviously, when healthy, unfortunately I know I might be a sore subject bringing up Jacob Degrom right now, but when they are healthy, this is going to be probably the best, if not one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball. But if there's one thing we know as baseball card collectors, pitchers just don't do that well. And I think it's a shame because I think there's a lot of great guys who deserve more recognition. And it's like, are you going to spend $2,000-$3,000 on a prospect you've never heard of, or spend less than that and get, I don't know, Clayton Kershaw or some future Hall of Fame pitcher? So I want to play a little game here where we're going to talk about 5 guys that I think are either future Hall of Famers or borderline Hall of Famers, and if they're a worthy investment for adding to the collection. I got some little prices here, some research, thanks to our good friends over at Card Ladder. The first guy I want to bring up is Max Scherzer, who made his debut this weekend for the Mets. Looked impressive. Also came out no sentimentality. I liked it. Just everybody in Washington on their feet. Hey, thanks for the World Series. Thanks for silence. Nope, right back at it. I think he almost quick pitched the audience. I felt like in that game where they were trying to let him hey, acknowledge us.
Take the moment a little bit.
Yeah, nope. I'm a Met now where we cannot be friends for at least until I hang up the cleats. We can't be friends. His PSA 10 base rookie card, last I saw, sold for about $492.22. Back on April 10th. Guy's a future Hall of Famer. His price, I think, compared to some of these guys we're going to talk about, obviously it's not like a bargain here, but compared to what he has done in his career, I think if there's the guy you look at is oh, this is a guy for pitchers to invest in. Max Scherzer, to me, about as safe a bet as possible. What do you think? You buying Max Scherzer, a rookie card, around that price right now, considering what he's going to be? A future Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I'm buying him. That's a pretty easy buy for me. Like you said, he's a guaranteed Hall of Famer. He's a 3-time Cy Young Award winner. He's still got stuff left in the tank. So the numbers are only going to continue to improve, and his Hall of Fame, pedigree is only going to get stronger and stronger as we go. $500 for a guy who's a guaranteed Hall of Famer, at least in my eyes, is seemingly no brainer. You can't talk about the 2010s and not mention Max Scherzer. He is number 1 or number 2 best pitchers of this generation. You got to, that's a definitely buy.
Yeah, I think part of the value there too is that he came on so late that I think there's a lot of people who still haven't really, I think in the collector's world, I should say, baseball fans know what they're seeing with Scherzer. But I think that it is a little bit of he was such a late bloomer that maybe we're forgetting no, he's done enough this last 10 years to lock himself into Cooperstown no matter what he does going forward. By the way, in Washington this weekend, I will talk about your Mets a little bit. I feel like I was watching highlights and watching the games, watching recaps, and it was just a lot of stress this weekend. The benches were clearing, and obviously opening day was it was weird to be Tyler McGill has just started opening day. What's going on here? And yet I think the Mets looked as good as any team in baseball this week, and they were pretty dominant in Washington, other than that comeback yesterday and against Washington.
I felt really good about what I saw. You're going to get the opening day growing pains, and of course we want to see Jacob Degrom on the mound, but Tyler McGill was awesome. He was so good, and that's a guy I'm going to keep a close eye on too. If he's throwing 98 like he was, and he has that slider and changeup, he's going to be a very, very strong pitcher. And then Scherzer, go figure, he had the worst start of all the Mets players, which is so funny. He gave up 3 runs, but Bassett, Carrasco, whatever it was, everyone pitched well, everyone played well. They didn't get the sweep. It's a bittersweet way to end the series, but as a Mets fan, I'll never complain about 3 or 4.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I think pretty dominant from the starting staff. I think you got a taste that even without Degrom right now, this team is going to be okay. The starting staff, they're so deep pitching wise, and obviously it looks like the offense is finally starting to come around for that team. And also back on McGill, just looking from him from a hobby perspective, if you're looking for a dark horse, I feel like the Mets are one of those teams where starting pitchers, I think, tend to do better there for trading cards and just for popularity. I mean, when guys pop, there's a long lineage. I don't have to tell you of guys, who Dwight Gooden and Matt Harvey, these guys who pop and become these overnight superstar sensations. Who's to say that Tyler McGill is not that next guy? I know it's only one start, but the stuff was for real in that.
The stuff's for real. And what I love about him too is he's got that confidence and cockiness that he can become a star as long as the performance is still there. Being in New York, like you mentioned Matt Harvey, like I don't think they're the same type pitcher, but I think the idea of like Tyler McGill is like, give me the ball, I'm going to shove it down your throat, is the same way that Matt Harvey came up and keeps pitching like this. Like you said, I mean, he's like free. His cards are free right now. Like just take a look at him.
Yeah, exactly. Crazier things have happened. I don't think it'd be a bad investment at all. The guy could stick around in the rotation if he plays his cards right. Speaking of a guy who's stuck around in the rotation for almost 15 years now, here on the West Coast, we know him as Clayton Kershaw. He's a guy that has tormented my Giants for many, many years and is going to the Hall of Fame, I think, no matter what happens. All these guys I'm going to talk about are all like, other than Scherzer's in that $500 range or more. Everybody else I'm going to talk about is like under $200 or around there for a lot of their PSA 10 rookie cards. Clayton Kershaw, I just looked, his PSA 10 base rookie, the same exact set, by the way, as Max Scherzer's, the 08 update, sold for just under $1,200 recently. Wow. That man, and I think he's a phenomenal pitcher and one of the best we've ever seen in this generation. $1,200 though for a PSA 10 rookie of Clayton Kershaw. A little steep, I feel like, even considering what he is and how good he is, but compared to some of these other guys, I think maybe a little bit on the high end.
Yeah, the thing that is interesting about Clayton Kershaw is we're in this weird time right now where I feel like he's kind of underappreciated because he's a few years away from being that insane pitcher that he was. But when you look back at his prime, he's going to go down as one of the top 10 pitchers, maybe even top 5 of all time, I think. And especially from the left-hand side, he has a chance to be one of the best to ever do it. So I think he's someone that probably could go up, but it's going to be a long way from now. It's going to be when, me and you are getting a little bit older here and we're like, remember Clayton Kershaw? Remember how great he was? One of the greatest pitchers of all time. Like, he's someone who probably needs a little more appreciation in terms of his actual skill and to get further away from what he's like now, because you forget how good he once was. But yeah, 1,200 right now, you could buy like 2 Max Scherzer cards right there.
Exactly. That's what it feels like. It's just like, and again, this whole segment is about, hey man, let's give respect to the pitchers, but Kershaw is pretty steep. Now you could make the argument that like he is kind of, for the Dodgers, sort of an heir apparent to a pitching figure like Sandy Koufax, and Koufax's cards kind of defy the pitcher expectations, because obviously those vintage cards are incredible. It's some of the most iconic designs we've ever seen. So you could make that argument that is why that price point is justifiable for Clayton Kershaw. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we're seeing with like Albert Pujols right now in the card market where his stuff is suddenly starting to go back up. I think people are finally appreciating, after so many years in Anaheim where things just did not work out, we're finally having the late career appreciation of Albert Pujols. So maybe the same thing here happens for Kershaw. And you know what? Kershaw's still good. That's the other thing.
He's probably got like 5 or 6 years left too. He's like not old by any means.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's every time I think we say this is it. This is the end of Clayton Kershaw as an ace pitcher. He's still at least the 3rd guy in that rotation, and I think on a good day is the 2nd guy in that Dodger rotation. With Walker Buehler, Luis Urias, saying those names just gave me a shiver down my spine when the Giants have to play them in about a month's time. But I'll worry about that in a month's time. Speaking of a guy who was a former Dodger, this is the guy I think is the most underrated. And I think another guy that maybe gets that late career bump, Zack Greinke. Kind of a borderline Hall of Famer. I think he will get into the Hall of Fame. I think that you look at the track record, you look at what he's done in both leagues. It's hard to argue that this guy isn't deserving of being in the Hall of Fame. His stuff is real cheap right now. It's a little harder to come by his stuff, but I think a 2002 PSA 8 Bowman Chrome sold for about $185. That's the highest sale I could find of any of his stuff. Real cheap. And I think he's maybe of all these guys is the strongest buy if you're looking to invest in into some future Hall of Fame pitchers. Yeah,
I mean, you want to talk about appreciating someone like later. We've been seeing Zack Greinke be a different pitcher than he was when he was winning Cy Youngs out in Kansas City. Like people forget he threw like high 90s and he had some of the nastiest stuff. Like now he's a different pitcher. He tries to get late into games. Like that's not his job anymore. He's not going to be able to pump 99 late in the game. So you watch him pitch now and you don't think Hall of Famer because of how he pitches at this moment. But you look at his whole career as a whole, I'm with you. I think he's definitely a Hall of Famer. And at that, I mean, like you said, that's the highest price you could find. I feel like I don't want to say no risk. There's always risk, and it depends what your budget is. But if you're spending money on these cards like that, I think Zach Greinke's worth it. The thing is, he's just like he's a small market player, kind of. Yeah. Kansas City is like the team that definitely you always are going to associate with him the most, and especially during his prime. So that might be tough. But then the Royals, it is a baseball city. Like Kansas City is a baseball city, and he did have the Astros and the Dodgers sprinkled in there. So I like that price. I think that's pretty safe.
Yeah, and I think too one, I think you're seeing a bit of maybe him going back to the Royals, and also the timing with Bobby Witt Jr. being there. And I mean, he's as hot a prospect for collectors and as big a name, I think, storyline for really just baseball in general this year. Looked good. I think he got another hit today before got on the air. So he looks like the real deal early on, but that maybe helps out a little bit. But I think you pointed to it. He's also bounced around so much that I think it's tough for collectors to get as interested when it's a guy who let's see if we can do this. The Royals, the Astros, the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers,
Brewers were in there.
That's right.
The Angels were in there for I think half a season as well. Like he's bounced around quite a bit for a guy who, like we said, like is a Hall of Fame pitcher. Probably it's weird to say out loud, but never like one of those. He had the Dodgers for that little sprinkle. That's kind of the biggest one you can think of.
Yeah, exactly. Where he was, I mean, other than those years of Kansas City, I think the best he ever was with those Dodger teams. That year where he was I think he broke the single season ERA record or got close to it. Just absolutely phenomenal that year. But yeah, I think he's still, I think a strong buy. I think hopefully we've convinced some people. I think it was a pretty convincing argument for Granky. The guy's been so good, and maybe it's the personality too. Turns people off.
Definitely. I think him being quiet and not being a star, like even if he won 3 Cy Young awards, Max Scherzer is going to get the shine over him just because Max Scherzer is a psychopath and everybody's like, I want that guy. Where Zach Greinke's quiet. He doesn't talk to anybody. He keeps to himself.
Right. Yeah. But I before I lose this thought, if we're likening Greinke's career here or second half of his career to another player, I'm thinking Vince Carter in the NBA, where like clearly he lost a step, but he understood what he was now, reevaluated, reconfigured his game, and continued to be successful. And I think because of that, makes his career longer, and I think locks up a Hall of Fame spot when maybe it was kind of on the bubble. I think Greinke is maybe the MLB version of Vince Carter. I
kind of like that, yeah, because he had an explosive start. Like it's hard, like you said with Vince Carter, like it would be hard to see him play these last couple years and be like, I can't believe he was doing 360 windmill dunks. But that's kind of the same with Zach Greinke, who's one of the best pitchers in baseball at his prime.
Yeah, exactly. All right, one more guy, or actually 2 more guys we're going to talk about. Justin Verlander, who I think is actually one of these guys who sells really well. I think I said most of these guys are under. Verlander is a guy who does sell really well, and rightfully so. I mean, MVP, Cy Young guy. And I think, too, he might be a guy that if you're holding on to some of his cards, I think his a Bowman or Topps Chrome first year auto PSA 10 sold for just under about $1,200 recently. But a lot of his base rookie stuff is still pretty affordable. His first year stuff, I've got a first year in a shoebox somewhere. It's not going to grade very well, but it's there, and I want to hang on to it just as a little keepsake. But I think his low end stuff is going to go up because of this comeback year he's going to have. And I think he feels like he's, 38, 39 years old now. I think he thinks he feels like he's got a left in the tank. And we've seen so many like comebacks after we thought, well, it's over. That first act of his career was nice, but now it's over for Verlander, and then comes back and is better than ever. We're in the third act now, and I don't doubt him. And I feel like if you're looking to get his low end stuff, I think there are a lot worse investments to make for baseball cards.
Yeah, no, I think it's very much similar to like what we've been talking about with Granky and Kershaw too. Like another guy you're going to look back at his career, and he does have like that weird middle part where he was just kind of okay for like, it's not even that long. It's like three years or so.
Right.
But he was so dominant on either end of that that I don't care. I mean, you go through your growing pains. Instead of doing that as a rookie, he did in the middle of his career. So, like, what does that actually matter in the terms of his Hall of Fame, pedigree by any means? He's a stud. He's one of my favorite pitchers of all time. The guys you mentioned, outside of Granky, I don't think he's like necessarily generational, but like Verlander, Kershaw, Scherzer, they're the generational pitchers right now. This, the 2010s, early 2000s or late 2000s. I put him in that same group. I really like him a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. He is, I think, the one guy where I think Kershaw and him are the prices are totally justifiable. I know it's, again, on the higher end, but I think, again, the point is you're looking at these guys versus these top prospects who have no experience and maybe a little wiser investment. But last guy I want to talk about is Jacob Degrom, who I think is kind of the most interesting guy on the list, because I think for pitchers, there was a moment at the peak when he was just the best in baseball. I mean, when he's healthy, he is the best in baseball. There's no question about it. The injuries have become a problem, unfortunately. It's really a shame. But at his absolute peak, he was selling like any position player was. I think he was at that top of the mountaintop for collectors, because I think everyone was in, and I was in. Everybody it was phenomenal. Everybody paused. Everybody stopped what they were doing to make sure to watch the Jacob Degrom starts. Right now, his PSA 10 2014 Topps Update rookie is sold for, last sale I could find, April 10th, about $212 for that rookie. He's going to be out for a little while. Where are we with Jacob Degrom? Are we at how do you feel about his future here? What does he need to make that leap into this conversation with the four guys that we've already mentioned?
Yeah, I think getting a third Cy Young would be really, really big. I think that would really elevate him, even though he's basically been a Cy Young the last 2 years. Even Bauer and Burns won it. We know the years that he had, he was great, but he didn't get it. And the longevity, he needs to pitch till he's like 40, and then it gets really, really, really interesting, because what do you do with a guy who really popped off for a 6-7 year span, but was so incredibly disgustingly good that you can't really compare him to anybody else besides the greats like Pedro Martinez, Bob Gibson, like those kind of names. So it's really hard, and I think you agree with me on this. Like, it's definitely the riskiest one. Mm-hmm. But as long as his shoulder, I think, looks good whenever he does come back this year, I would take that risk on 200, because he could get into that level of being that, $500,000 card. So, it's risky. You want to take a better risk on some other guys. I think that's fair. But if you really do trust Jacob Degrom, and when you watch this guy pitch, you go, this is a Hall of Famer, I think you should back him. I have a couple of his rookie cards, so I'm definitely invested in him if you want to hear my personal opinions on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing too, is he could come back midseason and have that stretch where he just looks dominant and unbelievable. This is probably the best Mets team he has been a part of since that World Series year. And if he can have that second half resurgence and lead this team deep into the playoffs, really is where you're going to see the value is going to just skyrocket for his stuff, I think, along with a lot of other guys on the team. But I think he's the guy who would be the biggest benefactor for baseball cards. And I just personally I just want to see this guy pitch, man.
Me too.
Hey, thanks for checking out this clip of Wax Packs and Warning Tracks, Mojobreak's baseball card podcast. If you want to check out the entire audio version, make sure to follow the link in the description below, or better yet, subscribe to the podcast. Search for Mojobreak Sports Card Show. That's Mojobreak Sports Card Show wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes drop every Tuesday, and The Hype. New episodes of that drop on the same feed every Thursday. 2 for 1. Who doesn't love that? Get both podcasts, subscribe wherever you listen to them, and of course, make sure to subscribe to Mojobreak Media here on YouTube. Like the video. We've got more great content about trading cards, sports cards, the hobby, and much, much more.